Today, my video diary will be audio only because, well, I may do, but I probably won't do a video today. I'm basically what I'm eating is a variation of the cereals I've been already showing to you. My bananas are not quite ripe today yet, so I'm going to probably be doing blueberry, pear, and pecan and pomegranate for my breakfast, and almond milk. And I may put a little bit of granola in there. I have not yet decided. But I decided that there are some other things I want to talk about, because while I was making this day a day of preparation, because tomorrow is the Sabbath. Today is the 6th of December. We got a pretty full schedule tomorrow, so I decided that today I will do a lot of my preparation. You'll find that eating like this does require a lot of prep work. It's, because the things that God has designed for us to be food perishes pretty quickly, then you will find that it's going to be necessary to kind of put them in a state where they won't perish quite as quickly, and that's going to be like currently I'm taking some more of my pomegranates and I'm taking my seeds out, and I'm doing that today so that I can have enough for making cereal today, tomorrow, and probably for Sunday, for not just one but for two. So I'm going to do a whole, I think this is a quart, this is a pint bag. I'm going to do a pint bag full of pomegranates, seeds that I can use to make my cereal. Now, the thing about, a lot of people say this is a lot of work, and yes, it is. God actually, when He created us, you see, majority of their work was tending the garden, and even in the wilderness, majority of their work, when you start talking about other than the grazing, the farming, and the feeding the animals and so forth, would have been, they would have had to make the manna. They had to pick it every day. So preparation, gathering and preparation is a little time consuming. However, if we look at our, the way God just designed everything, moms, the only diet they have to give their babies are milk for the first year or so. And then you start getting into solid foods. That gives you a year of only really having to prepare food for you and, your husband. So it actually does kind of keep the workload to a minimum in terms of cooking and fixing food and so forth. You got to look at kids like an investment. They come really as assets, whether we want to receive that or not. They come as assets because a blessing is an asset. Asset to the family. We make them liabilities, though. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because really, if you train up a child in the way they should go, if you train them how to do the things you're doing, in terms of learning how to eat responsibly, disciplining them to learning how to make use of their time, and training them how to think logically and reasonably, then you'll have workers that help you with this process. You'd have little hands that's able to do a lot of your de-seeding for you, and it'll make your work actually go faster. Now, of course, this may be 4 or 5 years of you doing it on your own until you get them to a point where they can do it or help you do it, and then eventually get to a point where they can replace you in terms of you work yourself out of a job. You've trained them so well that they'll be making the cereal for the family, and you could be doing whatever other task the Lord has for you. If we think Hebraically, we see that this is exactly the sort of thing that took place within the families back then. I mean, look at Rebecca. Rebecca had a nursemaid, but she was yet old enough to be married, which means she wasn't needing a nursemaid for the purposes that, many of us, she wouldn't have still been being breastfed or anything like that. But she had someone who was serving her, yet she wasn't, just like a lot of our children, just sitting around watching TV and talking to her friends and making room for idle time. She was out there working herself. She was the one who was sent to get water. It's not like she knew ahead of time that, there's going to be a stranger there who's going to need me to water his camels. No, she was getting water for herself and for her own family. That was part of her responsibility in the family. Which then makes sense why, dowries were given. When a daughter was to marry a man, a dowry was given because he had a built-in worker. Yes, of course, it's also the family name is gone at that point. But primarily, you got to account for now this individual who's no longer contributing to the home. And money was just the means of being able to, money or even supply, whatever, because you just think about it. If she was the one who planted the garden, well now, if your major crop is corn and she's no longer doing that, that dowry might include, hey, she marries a guy who's a corn farmer. It might include he be giving her corn, or he be giving her family, not her, but her family, because that's who's going to be missing her as an asset to the family. He'd be giving her what is needed to buy corn. So it might be gold and silver and all these other things, which maybe need either buy corn or to replace her with a worker that you now have to accommodate for their needs. So we have to be mindful that God is practical and he does things decently and in order. And if we look at our children as blessings in the making, as part of the family that helps the family to continue, and train them in the way they should go, we not only make them an asset, even at a young and tender age, for our family, but that makes them attractive to others. That's what's going to attract the right husband who can appreciate a woman who has those sort of disciplines and sense of responsibility and sense of being family minded and so forth. So we're training them to be good wives, and our job is to do that. Train them to fulfill the role to which they are called. That is our responsibility. And so you'll see that if you are starting this journey and you're just now having children, having your mind renewed into thinking about things from that perspective will help you to realize that, hey, if you have not already been eating in a healthy way, have not already been figuring out how to plan your day, how to plan around getting things accomplished with the addition of a little one, then take this opportunity to begin learning these recipes and learning what works for you in terms of being able to get this down to a 10-minute process as opposed to a 30-minute process. And that could be simply by you just stating, okay, well, I got to plan my week in advance. So you got little kids in limited time. You may want to take Sunday and say, hey, if I'm going to do pomegranates, I'm going to de-seed at least 2 bagfuls of pomegranates in one day so that I can have what I need for the week. And by doing that, you actually have an extended time for the week. So setting goals that are doable within a schedule that you can actually accomplish it, because you're training your kids for what they're going to do. If you minimize the value of eating healthy and providing nourishment, sustainable nourishment for your family, if you minimize that or you make it appear as if it's not something that should be a priority, they will do the same thing. If you prioritize your career, things outside of the home, your relationships outside of the home over your children, guess what they're going to do? The same thing that you do. You can tell them make your family a priority all day long, but what you actually do is going to speak to what they actually do. And it's going to speak a lot louder. So, I like to say I wish I would have been on this quest when my stepchildren were younger. But, I kind of got distracted. And, of course, being instant mom, there was a lot to have to learn. I think it's always different, when you had a chance to start from the beginning as opposed to in the middle of a child's growth. It is always better the earlier you can begin planting the seeds of healthy eating and healthy living and all of that, so you can mirror it. But once you come into an already made set situation, it's a little bit harder. And then couple that with the fact that these are children who you are supplementing for, you're not replacing for them, so you have to also accommodate for that in terms of lifestyle and decisions. But you do the best you can. The bottom line is you want to be able to do all that you can to change the hearts and minds of the next generation. And the way you do that is by modeling it and by teaching it. And you teach it by having them do it. The same things we're doing right now. You take the time out and you show them how, and you explain to them why it is important that you make healthy eating a priority in your life. Because without the right fuel, you're not going to keep going for long. It's just like we had this conversation actually with my stepson. Yes, it's important to get to work or to go to class for school, but your priorities have to shift if the very thing that you use to get you to your highest priority isn't functioning right. So if your car is having some issues that's going to put you down, and driving is essential to your getting to your higher priority, then you have to then shift it. That may mean you have to miss a day in order to take care of that which makes it possible for you to get to it. And so, that's the thing we have to look at when it comes to food. We have to say, hey, without the right food in my body, I'm going to be less able to accomplish the task that's at hand. I got to have fuel, and I got to have the right kind of fuel. The fuel that's going to help me for whatever my task is. If your task is you're going to be mentally having to be alert as opposed to physically alert, then you need to pump up as many vitamins and minerals as possible. And you need to make sure you get foods like that's going to be high in helping the brain waves function as they should, like blueberries. So starting with a fresh fruit breakfast, getting the nuts in, things that's going to get that fat to the brain. You want to start with that in your mornings. You want to do that because that's what's going to be fuel for what you're going to be using the most, your mind. Now, if you work a job where you are going to be doing a lot of machinery, heavy artillery, then you need to pump up as much iron and as much protein as you can muster, because you're going to need to have the blood functioning properly, and you're going to need to have your body able to lift things that are heavy, as well as calcium. You got to keep those bones tight and ready for the task. So you need to look for foods that's going to aid in that. The purpose of eating is not just for our enjoyment. It actually serves a purpose. It's not just for congregating and fellowshipping. It within itself serves a purpose. And if the purpose is not being met, then the food we're eating is not really fulfilling its purpose. And it's like I said, many of us, we train our children. They come as assets, but we train them. We teach them by what we do, as well as what we say. We teach them to become liabilities to us. So rather than them being able to have their provision for their purpose be met externally, you have to plan and you have to make concessions for it. But if you train them up in the way they should go, then God makes a lot of the provision that you need for them. So, anyway, as I stated, today I'm working on some recipes, because with Shabbat coming, Sabbath, I got to prepare my food a day in advance. And again, that's why I said my goal is 80-20. 80% raw, 20% cooked and meats. And with that means that in the midst of me fixing my breakfast, I am also planning and fixing my dinner that's to carry us over for the rest of the weekend. So I probably won't join you again until Sunday. But so you know what I'm fixing, and if it turns out good, which I believe it will, one way of minimizing at least meat, especially if you're the only one on this journey in your family, of minimizing the amount of meat you're having to intake, is to combine your meat with vegetables. That's going to do two things. It's going to actually increase the amount of vegetables you're getting, and it's going to minimize the focus on the meat. Because the thing is, as you get more recipes in your repertoire, your family will become more apt to come on board with you. I mean, if you just, basically come to your family with, hey, I'm experimenting with some diets, of course it's not going to sound appealing to them. But if you have actually kind of slowly started incorporating some of the things that you're doing into their diet, and then begin kind of phasing the focus. When if your goal is not to get rid of meat, you might just want to minimize the amount of meat. So the way you can even minimize the amount of meat is as you begin to come up with breakfast and lunch meals that are not focused on meat or on cooked foods. Then when you start getting to your cooked foods, begin doing casserole dishes or combination dishes that has the meat incorporated, but it's not the main focus. It's just for flavoring rather than being the main dish. And so today I'm actually going to do what I call kind of like a cabbage, using cabbage as a substitute for spaghetti noodles. And I'm going to put some home-style meatballs, turkey. And I'm mixing that with some organic fire roasted, and of course that's canned. I don't necessarily recommend canned, but you do what you can. Tomatoes and some soy vey, which is absolutely awesome. Some soy vey sauce in my meatballs. I'm letting that cook separately. I plan to saute. But first I'm letting the juice from the minced garlic, and I'm letting the onions, and I've shredded my cabbage, and kind of letting that sit a while. until I'm ready to put it into a cast iron skillet, and then I'm going to saute it. And then I'm going to add just a teeny tiny bit, maybe about a pinch or two of baking soda. And the purpose of me adding the baking soda is that it helps to minimize the methane. If you ever had an uncomfortable experience with cabbage in terms of gas or flatulence, then that helps to minimize it. It doesn't always, and if you don't put it in at the right time, it won't really work. So you have to make sure you do it at the right time. And the closer you get it to the perfect time, which has to be when it's cooking and process of cooking, then the less of the other results you'll have. So my plan is to do that. Put a little soy vade as well in it as it cooks and sautés, as well as some sesame oil in my pan while it's cooking. Saute it with that because I like the flavor of sesame oil. But my goal is to do that and then combine the dish as one. And then I'm going to make some mixed vegetables from a frozen vegetable bag that I have. So, you know, every meal doesn't have to be intense. But that's going to be our meal for Shabbat. And I'm going to also play around with a dessert. We can't do chocolate, so we do carob instead. We have an allergic reaction to chocolate. So I'm going to make some carob, some quinoa flour carob brownies. So we're going to see how that works out. And if it works out really good, then when I make the next batch, it will be one on my video diary. But that's going to be about it for now. My breakfast is about ready. So bon appetit until we talk again.